Happy Monday, everyone. Hope everyone had a fantastic weekend. Hopefully, you guys got to watch my fantasy stardoms and situms this weekend, as well as my Sunday NFL Week 10 prediction videos. Looks like I was pretty accurate on both accounts, so we did well this week. So hopefully, you guys watched and I helped you guys out with some tips. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the GM meetings going on. The MLB GM meetings started today, which officially usually kicks off the MLB offseason, which I've stated before is my favorite time of year. The MLB offseason filled with trades, rumors, free agency signings, dollars flying everywhere. It is the most wonderful time of the year, and the GM meetings is usually the start of where everything starts to get moving. The ball starts rolling now, and then we see over the next month until the winter meetings start. That gap right there is where everything comes to fruition, and then it all kind of explodes at the winter meetings at the beginning of December. So a couple topics we're going to talk about today that came up through the GM meetings. The first is the retirement of Carlos Beltran. Carlos Beltran has had a fantastic career playing for the Royals, the Mets, Houston a couple times, Texas, and the Yankees. He went out. He had a hero's way to go out, winning the World Series this year. This guy has had fantastic numbers over his career. 279 career batting average, 435 dingers, 1587 RBIs, and actually had 312 stolen bases. The good thing about Carlos Beltran was that he was such a threat on many different levels. He obviously had the pop. He had the ability to drive in runs. He had the speed to steal bases. He had the gun in the outfield to be a huge threat to opposing runners trying to score from second to home on a single. And the guy was just an overall good guy as well. He's one of those talents that that you really look at when their career's done, and you kind of appreciate them for what they accomplished more so when they were playing than when they were playing the game. So I look back today, and the numbers kind of took me back a little bit. And I didn't realize you don't realize how good a guy like Carlos Beltran is until he announces his retirement. And you kind of look at the career numbers, and it's like, wow, okay, he was that good. Hall of Fame? Question mark. I think yes. I think Carlos Beltran is a Hall of Famer. You kind of look at that 500 home run club, and some of the guys that didn't get into the Hall of Fame because they didn't hit 500 home runs. Well, some of those guys didn't have quite the career or the numbers all around that Carlos Beltran had. So I say thumbs up. I think Carlos Beltran will be a Hall of Famer eventually. Maybe not a first ballot or a second ballot Hall of Famer, but he will get in there. So as for some of the rumor mills starting to hit with the GM meeting starting today, two of the names that come up a couple times today were Carlos Santana and Logan Morrison. It looks like they got quite the market, and their market is heating up quickly. Boston, Anaheim, and then Seattle. All three of those teams have spoken to or set up meetings with Carlos Santana and Logan Morrison's representation. For Boston, I think it's more of, hey, if we don't get to sign Eric Hosmer, Logan Morrison and Carlos Santana are our backup options. But for teams like Anaheim and Seattle, I think those are more likely scenarios for those guys to slot into than a Boston. But the first base market is definitely starting to heat up. The secondary first baseman market, at least, because obviously the big horse Eric Hosmer, he'll be the biggest horse to go this offseason. But these guys are secondary options that are really, really good. So we'll start to see that moving quite quickly. The St. Louis Cardinals name has come up quite a bit today. It looks like they are positioning themselves to be big players this offseason, especially in the starting pitchers market. Whether that's going to be free agency going after some of the bigger names, Jake Arrieta, Pooh Darvish, or Ohtani, I'm not sure. But it seems like they are willing to make a big play for those guys. Some of the other big names that have been circling around the Cardinals today have been JD Martinez. What is my dog eating? Oh, my dog is eating everything. Piper, what are you eating? Come here. Come here. Okay. Piper's going to hang out with us for the next little bit. She seems to be eating everything. Piper, look at the camera. There you are. Okay. The JD Martinez and Eric Hosmer are two names that have come up in the last couple days with St. Louis having a ton of interest in. If St. Louis is in that market, they're going to have to expect to spend, $185 to $200 million on one of those guys. So, if they're really serious about becoming players and challenging the Cubs for the next couple of years, those are some names that you're going to hear circulating around with them. Another couple rumors going around. Alex Avila, Al Avila, dad of Alex Avila, just did a press conference around 4:30 Eastern time today, and he had mentioned that teams are calling on Ian Kinsler and Jose Iglesias already. So we know that the Tigers are in full rebuild mode. We know they're looking to get rid of everyone that they can for anything that they can get in. It looks like teams are calling on Kinsler and calling on Iglesias. So if they can get anything back in return that's going to help them in the future, I say go ahead and trade those two guys. Trade them as soon as you can, because I think those are guys that you can get a pretty decent return from. So let's get rid of those guys right away. Last thing I want to talk about today on the baseball side of things is Alex Anthopoulos accepting the GM role with Atlanta. I think Atlanta just, early in the offseason has just stolen the offseason victory right here, because I think Alex Anthopoulos is the next great general manager in the game of baseball. He showed what he can do with the Blue Jays in a short period of time. Unfortunately, the Shapiro regime came in, and Anthopoulos was a casualty of that. I think that's going to be one of the biggest mistakes that the Blue Jays ever made, was not hanging on to Alex Anthopoulos. Now that he's going to Atlanta, a team that has been in rebuild mode for a little while, Anthopoulos has the power and the swing, and he has the balls to go out and make a big trade. He's got the balls to go sign a big free agent. He just spent the last couple years in the Dodgers organization, and I think that's really going to help with his development. I think he got his feet wet with Toronto. He had success, which still blows my mind that they allowed him to walk away. And then he went and learned from some real pros in the LA Dodgers organization. So I think that Alex is going to take everything that he's learned. He's going to be able to use John Hart as well, a good baseball guy in Atlanta. And I think this is really going to help turn Atlanta into one of those franchises that's going to be one to be reckoned with over the next 5 to 10 years. Thumbs up to the Braves for grabbing AA. I think that's, so far, it's the biggest move of the offseason and could potentially be the biggest move of the offseason for a team like Atlanta that has a very storied past. And I think this is going to be their way back to relevance again within Major League Baseball. So that's it for baseball stuff today. Just want to quickly touch on one random thing. Eminem, he's back. The king, the rap god, Eminem is back. His album Revival is coming out shortly. They don't have a date yet. Me being from Detroit, Eminem is one of my biggest heroes, biggest idols in life. Definitely him and Kid Rock are my favorite musical artists of all time. So the fact that Eminem is back, new song featuring Beyonce, Walk on Water, fantastic. He's going to be the musical guest on Saturday Night Live this coming Saturday, so I can't wait to see that. Just wanted to just give a quick plug to the rap god Eminem. He's back. I couldn't be more excited. That's all I got for today, guys. As for that, I go.